Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. I start with the top stories that made headlines in the last week. In a CNN interview, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung expressed optimism about lingering trade issues ahead of next week's APEC meeting. He said he expects rational talks with the U.S. and called President Donald Trump a peacemaker. South Korea's ruling party is moving full speed ahead with its signature reforms, unveiling bold plans on Monday to reshape both the judiciary and the media landscape, moves that have already sparked a fierce political debate. After holding rates steady in July and August, South Korea's central bank has decided to keep its key benchmark rate unchanged for a third consecutive session, citing concerns over the housing market and foreign exchange pressures. President Lee Jae-myung says he believes South Korea and the U.S. will reach a trade agreement that is reasonably acceptable as negotiations continue to narrow differences over the deal before next week's APEC meeting in Korea. Our presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Ahead of a high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump next week and amid complicated trade talks, President Lee Jae-myung says he believes in the rationality of the United States when it comes to the trade issue. In an interview with CNN a week before the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju, Lee said it'll take a lot of time and effort, but he believes a rational agreement will be reached in the end. The allies are currently struggling to narrow key differences, including Trump's demand that Seoul makes a $350 billion investment upfront in return for lowered tariffs. When asked about that such demand is tantamount to a mafia shakedown and extortion on America's allies, the South Korean leader added he expects a rational result because the two countries are in an alliance and have common sense and rationality. On a possible meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in time for the APEC meeting, President Lee said he would welcome it if they met and supports their talks, though he sees little chance of it happening next week. When asked what his message would be to North Korea's Kim, Lee said meeting his counterpart would be the first step in resolving many issues. He earlier suggested that Trump could take on the role of a peacemaker and him as a pacemaker when they met at the White House in August as part of efforts to lower tensions on the peninsula. In 2019, Kim Jong-un and Trump had a surprise meeting at the DMZ 4 months after their talks in Hanoi fell apart. The upcoming gathering of 21 APEC member economies comes at a time of deep division and growing global uncertainties, with a focus on key summit diplomacy and America's sweeping tariff campaign on the world. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
It's not just the upcoming gathering of global leaders making headlines. The APEC CEO Summit is also drawing attention, with news that NVIDIA's CEO will also be attending the event. Pyongyang reports.
AI revolutionary Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, is returning to Korea for the first time in 15 years. Huang will attend the APEC leaders meeting in Gyeongju later this month, after years of skipping Seoul on his Asian tours. He's scheduled to deliver a press conference and keynote speech on the final day of the event. He's also expected to meet SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won and Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Jae-yong, as the two South Korean chip giants supply high-bandwidth memory chips, or HBM, to NVIDIA.
One company is ordering nearly half of the world's total memory chips, and Korea's chip makers are joining forces to meet that demand.
I'm confident that this collaboration will allow Korea to take a central role in leading the global AI paradigm and opening new frontiers for the future.
Their discussions will likely center on next-generation semiconductor technology, as well as ways to strengthen cooperation in AI development. There's even speculation that Huang could tour chip production lines during his stay. Top executives from global tech giants, including Google, Meta, and Microsoft, are also expected to attend. SoftBank's Masayoshi Son and OpenAI's Sam Altman are reportedly considering joining as well. If their visits materialize, analysts say it could give further momentum to the so-called Stargate project, a U.S.-led initiative to build next-generation AI data centers worldwide. Held under the theme Bridge Business Beyond, this year's APEC Leaders Meeting aims to connect world leaders and global CEOs through one-on-one meetings to explore new investment and partnership opportunities. 현예영, Arirang News.
The central bank has decided to leave its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 2.5% for the third session in a row amid concerns over the foreign exchange market and housing prices. Our economic correspondent Park Jun-han reports.
The Bank of Korea announced a third rate freeze of the country's base interest rate at 2.5% on Thursday, after cutting the rate by 25 basis points in May and holding it steady in July and August. The decision was widely expected as Central Bank Governor Lee Chang-yong said during a National Assembly audit on Monday that he intends to prevent additional liquidity from overheating the property market.
While inflation remains stable, uncertainties in growth persist. With ongoing improvements in consumption and exports, and given the need to monitor the housing market, household debt, and exchange rate volatility, we decided to keep the interest rate unchanged.
A professor of economics also pointed to the volatile foreign exchange market as one of the main reasons why the BOK is unable to make a preemptive rate cut. While the dollar index remains below 100, the $1 exchange rate has been hovering around 1,430 Korean won per US dollar as of October, which is considered high compared to historical data.
The Korean won has become volatile recently, partly due to the uncertainty over trade policy, especially the questions surrounding the $350 billion investment agreement between Korea and the U.S. In this environment, the bank wanted to avoid adding further instability to the currency market.
Following the bank's move, the interest rate gap between South Korea and the United States remains in the 1.5 to 1.75 percentage point range. Eyes are now on whether the central bank will lower the country's interest rate in November. With internal and external factors such as high housing prices, a volatile foreign exchange market, and the upcoming U.S. interest rate decision in October, the BOK said the agency will closely monitor the market and act accordingly. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
South Korea's ruling Democratic Party is accelerating its agenda on three major reforms, unveiling fresh proposals to overhaul the judiciary and the media. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Hae-ryun.
It's good to be here, Sujin.
So, Hae-ryun, what's at the core of these reform plans?
So on Monday, the Democratic Party introduced its proposals for judicial and media reform, marking a key milestone in completing its so-called three major reforms, covering prosecutorial, judicial, and media systems. The prosecutorial reform passed in September dismantled the existing prosecution service and redistributed its main functions into separate institutions. Attention has now shifted to judicial and media reforms, which the party says are critical for restoring fairness and public confidence in core state institutions. Regarding judicial reform, the bill would almost double the number of Supreme Court justices from 14 to 26. The party argues that this expansion will speed up case processing and bring more diverse perspective to the court's deliberations. Under the plan, 4 new justices will be appointed annually, allowing the court to reach 26 members by the third year. With the terms of 10 justices, including Chief Justice Cho Lee-dae, ending during President Lee Jae-myung's tenure, he could appoint up to 22 justices overall. In South Korea, Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, but require National Assembly approval, while the Chief Justice recommends candidates for associate justice roles, maintaining judicial input and limiting excessive executive influence.
So this is clearly a significant shakeup. So how are political parties responding to this?
So, unsurprisingly, the proposal has sparked some sharp partisan debate. The Democratic Party insists the reform is aimed at safeguarding public trust and ensuring political neutrality in the courts. Here's what the party chairman said at a press briefing on Monday.
Opposing judicial reform is no different from saying that. Given the opportunity, one can make biased rulings based on political interests. Judicial reform is about legally ensuring political neutrality under all circumstances.
Meanwhile, the main opposition, the People Power Party, condemned the initiative as a judicial coup that undermines judicial independence, claiming it could allow the administration to fill the Supreme Court with sympathetic justices.
The judicial reform being pushed by the Lee administration is a judicial coup with zero independence and fairness, an attempt by the government to control trials and dictate their outcomes.
During the Legislation and Judiciary Committee audits over the past few days, lawmakers clashed over the proposed appeal to the Constitutional Court system, which would have added a fourth tier of trial. Though this was removed from the draft after criticism, the DP plans to revisit it after further party consideration. Other judicial reform measures include diversifying the Justice Recommendation Committee, introducing judicial performance evaluations, and increasing transparency in court rulings.
And what about the DP's media reform? Can you tell us more about that?
So the Democratic Party has also unveiled its media reform plans, as you've mentioned, targeting the rapid spread of false or manipulated information online. The proposed bill introduces a punitive damages system, enabling courts to impose fines of up to 5 times the actual damages on media outlets or content creators who intentionally spread false information. The DP defines false or manipulated content as information that is clearly likely to harm others if circulated, emphasizing that intent is the decisive factor in determining liability. In addition, the legislation allows for fines of up to 1 billion Korean won, roughly $700,000 for repeat offenders, and includes measures to confiscate profits earned through the distribution of false content. To safeguard freedom of speech, the proposal also includes provisions preventing public figures from using defamation claims to silence critical reporting, aiming to balance accountability with press freedom. The Democratic Party positions the reforms as a way to protect citizens from misinformation and strengthen responsible journalism, while critics from the People Power Party argue the measures could chill press freedom and discourage investigative reporting. The party aims to pass these reforms before the National Assembly's regular session ends in December, but the PPP has vowed to resist, including through a filibuster if necessary.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today, Hae-ryun.
Thank you for having me.
North Korea fired a series of short-range ballistic missiles on Wednesday morning, the first launch of its kind by the regime in nearly half a year, ahead of next week's APEC leaders meeting in South Korea. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
North Korea fired short-range ballistic missiles at around 8:10 a.m. on Wednesday, its first launch of this kind in more than 5 months. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles were launched from the regime's Hwanghae-bukdo province just south of Pyongyang and traveled approximately 350 kilometers northeast. According to local reports, the missiles are believed to have fallen on land rather than in the sea. This marks North Korea's first ballistic missile provocation since President Lee Jae-myung took office in early June. The JCS said it has shared intelligence on the launch with the US and Japan, and that Seoul's military is maintaining a full readiness posture. The presidential office also stated that the National Security Council held an emergency military readiness review to assess the launch's impact. It added that the government will closely monitor the North for additional launches and review necessary measures. The provocation comes ahead of the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea next week, which U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are scheduled to attend. Experts say the launch was a message of pressure aimed at the U.S.
When the North Korea issue is discussed during the APEC period, Pyongyang's message is that the denuclearization issue is absolutely impossible. This also contains a message of pressure toward the U.S., telling America to come forward while remembering demands for the suspension of ROK-US military drills and the recognition of its nuclear status.
The launch also comes 12 days after a military parade in Pyongyang to mark the 80th anniversary of the Workers' Party, where it showed off its arsenal, including its latest ICBM, which experts say can be tested soon as well. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea once again showed its defense capabilities at APEC, the country's largest aerospace and defense exhibition. At this year's event, the country's latest unmanned systems and enhanced defense equipment were on display. Our Park Jin-an was there.
The South Korean Air Force's Black Eagles aerobatic flight team is showcasing their spectacular flight performances. The team also painted the sky with smoke, forming the Taek symbol, the central emblem of the South Korean flag that represents balance and harmony. The Black Eagles also performed a formation named Heart and Cupid, drawing heart-shaped clouds in the sky. This airshow was the opening event of the Seoul International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition 2025, the country's largest defense-related event that promotes the excellence of South Korean defense capabilities.
Seeing it up close, it was just amazing. I thought about how hard they must have trained. Watching them fly made me feel more patriotic and connected.
It was so cool. I wish I could fly one myself.
Seeing it in person felt really different from watching it on YouTube. You can feel the thrill that videos just can't capture, and I really like that.
After the air show ended, visitors had the chance to take a closer look at the actual planes, helicopters, and various other defense-related machines. Following the conclusion of the 3-day air show, the defense exhibition opened on Monday. The exhibition will be open to the public for 5 days until 5 p.m. on Friday. This next-generation infantry fighting vehicle features technology that can counter drone attacks, a crucial capability in modern warfare. When asked about the future of modern warfare shaped by AI and unmanned systems, a senior research engineer said,
AI-based autonomous driving and detection tracking technology enables unmanned vehicles to enter hazardous areas without risking human lives. AI can also maximize effectiveness by refining and training data to suit South Korea's military environment. Based on sovereign AI, it is expected to prevent technology leakage and strengthen combat capabilities through independent AI advancement.
The operations team of ADEX 2025 said that this year's exhibition will serve as a stage not only for defense products, but also for highlighting next-generation innovations that shape the future of advanced air mobility. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Amid ongoing security threats posed by North Korea's weapons of mass destruction and the regime's cooperation with Russia, NATO's deputy chief this week attended South Korea's massive air defense exhibition and met with key security officials. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Seon sat down with her for an exclusive interview.
Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Radmila Shekerinska, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
We're living at a time when the United States is calling on its allies to step up, invest more in defence and pay more for their own security. How does a partnership with South Korea contribute to that effort for NATO?
You're absolutely right. There were strong calls from various sides within the alliance that we need to spend more on our defence, because in the present changed global security environment, we need to invest more. We have seen a more aggressive Russia. We have seen the threat that Russia poses to almost all of their neighbors. And it was very important that NATO keeps the technological edge, keeps the military advantages that we have always had. And for this, we need to invest more. We won't change the defense spending overnight, but some of the allies have actually moved to almost 5% even as we speak. And this shows a clear sense of leadership and purpose. We are also investing a lot in our innovation, because spending this money has to come up in parallel with more research and development, more innovation, and adding this innovation into defense and military capabilities. And this is also an area in which we do cooperate with our partners, and we value very much the cooperation that we had with the Republic of Korea. We cooperate in issues such as space, cyber. We cooperate on the usage of artificial intelligence in defense. All these issues contribute to countries being able to spend more, but also being competent and ready to spend better and smarter.
North Korea showcased new intercontinental ballistic missiles equipped with solid fuel engines along with hypersonics last week at this massive military parade that they had. And interestingly, it was attended by Russia's Security Council Deputy President. And what kind of growing threats do the allies face when it comes to Moscow and Pyongyang's military and technological cooperation?
The security of the Euro-Atlantic influences the security in the Indo-Pacific and vice versa. But we have seen these theaters even more interconnected after the Russian war against Ukraine. Seeing North Korean troops present there and fighting on behalf of Russia was, I think, a very clear signal to a much, much deeper and stronger military cooperation between Russia and DPRK. What was visible on the battlefield became visible also in other fields. So it was clear that North Korea is profiting from experience in warfighting, lessons in strategy in this new, let's say, warfare, but also from technology transfer. And this practically deeper military cooperation is a source of concern on both sides, in the Euro-Atlantic, but also in the Indo-Pacific. And this is why the security is now very rarely seen just in regional context, but much more globally. But this is also one of the reasons due to which our cooperation with the partners in the Indo-Pacific is crucial, is necessary, and it's beneficial for both.
North Korea is definitely profiting from Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. But at the same time, though, North Korean regime leader Kim Jong-un has pretty much signaled that he's ready to talk with US President Donald Trump. From a Euro-Atlantic perspective, what kind of progress do you hope to see if this high-profile meeting happens?
Well, have no doubts. NATO, in essence, is a defensive alliance. So we have always supported efforts to reach peace agreements, and we have been very supportive to a dialogue on difficult issues. We have supported US President Trump's efforts to broker a peace agreement, or initially a ceasefire, between Russia and Ukraine, and we have continued our support to Ukraine throughout this period so that Ukraine can negotiate from a position of strength. And this is why we believe that it is our duty to help Ukraine in this fight, but our goal is to help Ukraine get to the negotiating table and ensure a sustainable, lasting peace. So this is our policy when it comes to all conflicts. This is our policy when it comes to issues of global security.
Your trip to the Republic of Korea falls upon Seoul's annual aerospace and defense exhibition, ADEX 2025. What's been most interesting for you so far, and what do you hope to gain from your visit?
Actually, I was really impressed by not only the potential of the Korean defense industry, but also by the strong links that they have with a number of NATO allies and companies within NATO countries. So it's not something that has never existed. It is something that is ongoing, and I think that there is satisfaction on both sides. But as we said at the meetings with ministers and Korean colleagues, we can always do better, and we can really increase this cooperation for the benefits of both Korea, but also NATO.
Thank you very much for your time today and for making time for Arirang, Madam Deputy Secretary General.
Thank you, and I really appreciate your interest.
At Deoksugung Palace, Korea's master artisans are breathing new life into centuries-old traditions, showcasing over 120 works that blend heritage craftsmanship with modern creativity in an exhibition running through this Sunday. Park Hyo-bin takes us inside the exhibition.
Preserving tradition is just as important as creating it anew. A group of Korea's master artisans known as National Heritage Craftsmen have come together to showcase how traditional craftsmanship continues to thrive. Inside Deoksugung Palace, Korea's heritage is reborn through the hands of those devoted to keeping it alive. From a reinterpretation of the Irorobongdo, the iconic royal folding screen that stood behind the king's throne, to a faithful restoration of Gyeongbokgung Palace's floral walls, the exhibition features more than 120 works by artisans and apprentices across disciplines such as carpentry, painting, and sculpture. These craftspeople spent months, sometimes an entire year, replicating the exact materials or techniques of the past.
This portrait was made using yungnimun, a technique from the late Joseon period. We use natural pigments based on original recipes. Recreating the traditional process requires multiple attempts and can take 6 months to a year.
Their dedication goes beyond restoring old methods. It's about reviving the spirit behind them.
As a builder of hanok, Korea's traditional wooden houses, I am proud to promote the excellence of Korean architecture worldwide. We're doing our best to raise the global profile of our country's heritage craftsmen.
Each brushstroke and carving embodies centuries of accumulated skill and pride. And through their hands, the legacy of Korea's ancestors finds new life.
Our forebears left us this national heritage. Now it's our turn to pass it on to the next generation. That's why we keep creating, so that tradition never fades.
The exhibition, which runs until this Sunday, reminds visitors that heritage is not merely a relic of the past, but a living dialogue between yesterday and today, carried forward by those who refuse to let it disappear. Park Hoo-bin, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.